Greetings, netizens of YouTube. It's surely come to your attention that the US has begun dropping bombs on Syria. The very same President Trump that persuaded hundreds of voters to support him since he claimed that Hillary Clinton would start World War III with Russia over Syria.
Well, she has no plan for Syria, and look, with her you'll end up in World War III. With her plan you'll end up in World War III with Syria.
I'm sure I don't need to remind you that many people repeated Trump's alarmist narrative on this platform, believing that the Donald was somehow a safer candidate for world peace. For what it's worth, my immediate thought is that this is clever politics by Trump's Bannonless inner circle. Low-risk military adventures abroad tend to impress the corporate media and broad sections of the American public. In Trump's case, he will gain support and some respect from warhawks of the Democratic Party and the neocons of the Republican Party, whilst pleasing the military-industrial complex. At the same time, the intention is to project the idea that normal service has resumed to Russia. The establishment is satisfied. Trump has finally proved himself to be one of theirs, as if there were any doubt. And it goes without saying that the action was theatre without any military value. It's win-win-win. But what prompted me to make this brief presentation was a video I watched earlier from a YouTuber named Jason Unruhe. Most of you will know Jason. He is a Maoist communist. I'm aware that some roll their eyes when hearing his name, but I do share some of his opinions, and I'm sub to him. He reminds me of a real-life anarcho-syndicalist friend I have disagreements with. But I digress. In his latest video named US War on Syria Declared, Jason states that Bernie Sanders supported the order to drop bombs on Syria.
The so-called socialist Bernie Sanders has actually hailed the move and jumped on the pro-war bandwagon. In a statement on Facebook, he said, "In a world of vicious dictators, Syria's Bashar Assad tops the list as the dictator who has killed hundreds of thousands of his citizens to protect his own power and wealth. His regime's use of chemical weapons against the men, women, and children of his country in violation of all international conventions and moral standards makes him a war criminal."
Well, regardless whether Assad was responsible for the use of chemical weapons in this instance, even in the Arab world he is considered a brutal dictator that human rights groups say regularly tortures and kills those that speak out against him, and many believe his government to have carried out war crimes. Sanders hailed the move and jumped on the war bandwagon. Unlike many of Jason's commenters, with notable exceptions, I didn't find Jason's interpretation of the Facebook post convincing. Believing somebody to be a war criminal is not the same as supporting military action against them. Was Trump's Syrian, quote, war, unquote, supported by Bernie? I went to see what Sanders had to say about the airstrike. As the most powerful nation on earth, the United States must work with the international community to bring peace and stability to Syria, where over 400,000 people have been killed and over 6 million displaced. The horror of Syria's civil war is almost unimaginable. If there's anything we should have learned from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, in which the lives of thousands of brave American men and women and hundreds of thousands of Iraqi and Afghani civilians have been lost and trillions of dollars spent, it's that it's easier to get into a war than to get out of one. I'm deeply concerned that these strikes could lead to the United States once again being dragged back into the quagmire of long-term military engagement in the Middle East. Let's take a look at how it's possible to interpret Sanders' comments the other way. This is from Press TV. Former Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders has denounced US President Donald Trump for ordering a military strike against government targets in Syria, saying it could suck the United States into a years-long quagmire. However, as we now know, it's no more true that Sanders denounced Trump's military strike than it is that he supported it. In my view, it is not honest to not provide the reader or viewer with the full picture, even if leading with an opinionated headline. Yes, Sanders' statement leaves room for interpretation, and he can be blamed for not making his position clear. Indeed, the ambiguity of his statement tempts me to believe that this was the goal of the advisor who drew it up, to be all things to all men. Regardless of this, one expects this kind of false attribution of position from the tabloid media, but it's a bit disappointing to see Unruhe take part. It's a given that Jason is highly opinionated and has a bee in his bonnet about Bernie Sanders, or indeed many who call themselves liberals, but he is particularly irked at the fact that Sanders has described himself as a socialist, although Sanders has described himself as a social democrat and much more besides. Sanders' statement is pretty much in line with the moderate left position on matters of intervention. It tends towards avoiding intervention, but if intervention is to take place, it should do so within the auspices of the United Nations. This position doesn't trust individual states to work in the interests of the people involved, and believes that by bringing in the international community as a whole, there is a greater chance of success for all concerned. This position differs from the war hawk stance advocated by establishment Democrats such as Hillary Clinton, John McCain, and establishment Republicans who have spoken out in support of Trump's attack on Syria. To my mind, it is inaccurate and dishonest to put Sanders in with this grouping. Ideology aside, the absolutism and lack of nuance in some sections of the left as well as the right is concerning. It is unnecessary. People make allowances for uncompromising viewpoints. The problem begins when the ideological lens one looks through allows for facts to be altered. The content or message of channels like Jason's is valid in my view, but there is no harm injecting some nuance and separating fact from opinion. If one is confident of one's message, the listener does not need to be propagandized. Since I've picked on Unruhe and cherry-picked the Sanders part, it's only right that I include a section of the video which I find myself mostly in agreement with.
Yeah, we can see very clearly Bernie Sanders supports the attack, and that their claims that this is not my America, or this is not the America that I voted for, is absolutely false. This is America. This is American imperialism. This is mainstream American politics. There is no getting away with this.
It's true. US military intervention, whether it's an imperialist grab for oil or to reassert itself as a global military power under the pretense of humanitarianism, is mainstream American politics. Of course, we can't see, quote, very clearly, unquote, that Bernie supported the attack at all, but it's interesting to consider what would Bernie have done had he won the race. It's not unreasonable to assume that if Sanders' polling numbers were as low as Trump's, that his advisors would be pushing him hard to send in the bombers. At this point, I could take the easy option and end the video without giving my own opinion. But sod that. My position is somewhere between Sanders and Chomsky, who is against intervention as a matter of principle. I look upon intervention as something to be employed as a very last resort, with the blessings of the international community. For example, if there is clear evidence that genocide or war crimes are being carried out on a large scale. I know some will disagree, but I cannot, I will not look the other way when horrific crimes and great injustices are being inflicted upon people. The lives of people around the world, to me, are just as valuable as American or British lives. No, nation-states can't be trusted to act in my personal humanitarian interest. And yes, many Western interventions have ended up causing more bloodletting than might have otherwise taken place. Honestly, I could almost talk myself out of my own position going on past record. However, in my view, in certain dramatic circumstances, intervention is necessary, provided there are specific goals designed to help the local population. In this instance, I certainly do not support US intervention in Syria. My next one is topical. It will be about war crimes. When is a war criminal not a war criminal? What happens when our boys murder prisoners of war?
You're gonna end up, Steve, you're gonna end up in World War III over Syria if we listen to Hillary Clinton.
Tonight I ordered a targeted military strike in Syria. Good night, and God bless America and the entire world. Thank you.